Hey everybody, and we're live, at least I think I am. Hi Wolfhound, hi Patriot, hi Tom Kelly, hi Last True Gale, how are the lads? Let me know if you can hear me as usual, just so I feel a bit more confident and comfortable of what I'm doing. Okay, so yeah, hope you're all well. Just going to wait for that 5x5 just so it's funny that I think that's Gran Torino terminology, and someone was trying to tell me the origin of that. Kind of don't know what else to say now. Just let me know you can hear me, because I always get a sneaking suspicion I'm talking to myself. And hit the like button as well. I'm hitting it for myself here, um, just to give it a boost. And then I'll tell you what. Okay, cool. Just so I'll tell you what the plan is for tonight. It's actually nothing massively special. I just want to go through a bit of the news today type of thing. Some things that piqued my interest today. What's Patriot telling me here? Okay, it's a big brain Patriot take. I'll figure it out next time. But I notice Tom Kelly at the top of the chat here says Gemma and John, that's Gemma O'Doherty and John Waters, said death rates are down this year compared to last year. Now, this isn't some kind of like own, facts and logic thing. I don't know how verified this is. Maybe there's, you see competing sources different times saying different things. So they could be completely right. But just as far as I've seen it, here, I'll share my screen with you. This guy, Seamus Coffey, something like that, has been a lecturer at UCC and blah, 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 kind of researcher, has been charting death rates in Ireland, overall death rates. This isn't going to be all about the pandemic, by the way. This is just a little intro, just because I saw the point made at the start of the chat. He's been basically taking RIP.ie notices and comparing it to different times in the past via RIP.ie as well. Now, it's not the most 100% exact science, rigorous thing in the whole world, but he's mapped it, I think, to some Eurostat data, and it's reasonably sound as far as this Seamus guy says, anyway. And as you can see here, the different years, 2020, all these different years, and you can see there's a spike here. I think that is the one my mouse is on. If you can see it, I think that's the big snow a couple of years ago there. What was it, Storm Emma, something like that. And you have fluctuations, but here you can see distinct and growing, well on its way up. Is the current situation, what we would speculatively ascribe to COVID-19. Now again, maybe there's some other source, la-di-da. That's the best available information I've seen, and it's the only information I've seen. So I would be interested to see what sources are available there that suggest the opposite. Whatever. If on four says, good to see so many heads here. Yeah, there's a good few people here actually. Yeah, thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me. Sorry, I said I barely strung my words together properly there, which I should try to do if I'm going to be speaking to you all. So the plan anyway is a little bit on the. I'm not seeing the screen. Sorry, I want to see what's going on. Okay, just a little bit of technical stuff there for myself. So, I kind of want to talk about the airport and seaports in Ireland, which is a kind of controversy today in the Twitter sphere, the media sphere. It's kind of, and it's being mentioned at press conferences with the HSE and everything too. So it is a topic. It's not just a niche topic. It's a topic all over the place today. And it's about the seaports and the airports being open in Ireland, kind of open border. The border is still open and yet we're all locked down. That's the kind of theme. And Joe Cullen is asking me to elaborate. Okay, I'm elaborating, so Conor McGregor has kind of weighed in on this, and he's on the side of closing the border down. And there's some technicalities to go through here, and I just want to show you, if you weren't on Twitter, you didn't see the goings on there, what the exchanges were, and I'll kind of give you my opinion as I go. Then I also want to talk about some British kind of internecine, I think is the word, kind of spatting going on between Anne-Marie Waters and Patriotic Alternative, which is a kind of patriot activism kind of political group led by Mark Collett and Laura Towler, I think. So a kind of schism in this British, or well, some of these people would say it's not a schism because they're not the same people. But, from the outside looking in, it's sort of a schism. and it's just interesting. I want to pick up on that a little bit. And then someone is saying, lose Cullen. Do we have someone being I'm not a purger or a silencer, but if someone is just being an asshole, it's like, it's my channel. I'm here to have a nice time with not just like-minded people. I've said this before, but if you disagree, fine, say, make your point or whatever. But if you're just throwing abuse at people, nah, no time for it. And that goes outside of political stuff or whatever. So if there are any mods in the chat, just take care of that. We're all for open discourse, but no bullshit. So anyway, I want to talk about that. So there's the Connor thing and the airports and all of that. I want to talk about the patriotic alternative, Anne-Marie Waters thing. And again, I don't have well-rehearsed, like, big brain takes on this. I'm just kind of going through it with you. And then I want to just look at some of these videos coming out of China recently, of China being racist to black people, basically, which is like, it's not good. You don't delight in that. But at the same time, you have to work out where you stand on that. Outwardly, you would think it's bad. And I suppose it is. But it's a nuanced, interesting thing to look at, this kind of the idea that racism is just this thing European kind of new, or your white people, whatever you want to call it, can do. And it's just interesting to see. I can use the word internecine again, this kind of people of color on people of color racism. It's a kind of underrated phenomenon. And I just kind of want to talk through that a bit. And then I might get on to, I don't know, and this is something I thought of last minute, was just some of my thoughts on AVDChina. There's a channel I'm very interested in. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. AVDChina, Lawai, or Serpent ZA. They're these guys who, kind of two Westerners, a South African and an American, who talk about China and all of this. And I watch a lot of their videos. I'm always very interested in their point of view as Westerners, and I'm slightly critical of it. So that's going to be basically the talking points for tonight. And Fora says, Garrow, just to say fair play for doing all those streams of late. It's really important. Yeah, look, not so many people watch it, but the people who are important to me watch it, which is all of you lads. And I'm not even being cheesy there, but if you told me I could get a lot of other, I wouldn't say no to a big audience, of course, but I wouldn't do everything and anything to get them. In a way, I want to speak to you guys. And by speaking to you in this sphere, I am, that would turn off. I'm not trying to say I would have lots of viewers if it wasn't for this. I wouldn't, right? But, the trade-off between speaking to what I know and what's local to me and who I know and all of that kind of stuff is kind of what's important to me, in a way, if you get where I'm coming from. And that's just me. But of course, if like 20,000 British and American and Australian and Chinese people want to subscribe and follow and watch my videos, brilliant. At the same time. So anyway, let's just jump right into it, guys. So that's the kind of casual stats here on death rates. Let's get rid of that. So I think most of you know already. So this guy Gareth O'Callaghan, who I'm actually not sure who he is, but he tweeted out this clip from a newspaper today. And yet at 5:37 p.m. yesterday, as the state rightly enforces a lockdown, hundreds of ferry passengers drive into Ireland. And Gareth O'Callaghan says, so I'm kind of reading tweets to you here, but bear with me. They arrived into Ireland last night off the ferries in their camper vans and their caravans in their thousands. Why aren't our borders and ferry ports closed? Let's just wait and watch the stats climb here over the next 2 weeks. This proves that the situation is out of control. Okay. And then we have the big man, Conor McGregor here, 155 whatever kilograms or whatever it is. So he says, I am just reading tweets here. He says, the term pissing into the wind comes to mind here, men and women. Without the closure of our ports, air and sea, the birthplace of the spread into Ireland, which it is. That's not some kind of dog whistle or this or that or populist talking point. That's just a fact. We all saw the first 100 odd cases or whatever coming out where, or something like that. All of the first cases were just people who had come back from Italy, just as one would have predicted. Who'd have thunk it? So what are we really doing? Question mark. Lockdown? No, afraid not. Not quite a lockdown, McGregor says. And I'll just get to the other tweet he made here. he's imploring Gavin Riley, or what's his name? Gavin Riley, Gavin Riley, a journalist for Virgin Media News. He's imploring him, Gavin, who is going to be at the press conference, ask of our airports as well as sea. Not once has our airports where the virus came from been queried. It's not been queried. We must have answers. We must see action. It is not too late. Close our ports for all non-essential immediately. So that's McGregor making his point. And again, I will say, as I've said before, McGregor is clearly, making a move, a populist move. No, I'm sure he sincerely believes this and stuff, but this is starting. Oh, my battery in my laptop's going down. That would be bad. But okay, we're good. But it sounds politician-y. It sounds populist-y. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And he's always had that aura of statesmanship about him in his own kind of strange way. I think that's how I feel about it anyway. And he's making these noises, which I just think for anyone of this kind of point of view should be very, very interesting. And he's also making this point. Again, it is a sincere point. The technical point he's making is legit and all that. But above and beyond that, he's looking. I can't claim to know what Conor McGregor is thinking. This is a speculation from the outside before anyone accuses me of defaming him, or this is my speculation, that he's looking at this crisis, or at least if I was, you know what I mean? I'm total speculation here. I feel like he's looking at the situation as it is. It's a crisis. And he's pointing out an obvious contradiction and twisting the knife on it when and where it matters. Obviously, he's through his work in the fighting business and more so really the marketing business. The guy knows how to take advantage of the news, how to, pick your battles and all of that. So I look at this with keen interest. So he's making this over and over again, stressing this point. And he's another one of these, the Fine Gael, the kind of playing a blinder people hate this, and they hate Paddy Cosgrave and all of this. And it's not because they lost their marbles because Paddy Cosgrave said something that may or may not have been true. Oh my God, I'm panicking because that has not been verified. That's bullshit, right? They don't panic if something hasn't been verified, if it's Fergal Bowers or Simon Harris says it or whatever. Nobody gets that. While she says the McGregor thing seems highly disingenuous, I'll get back to that in a sec. But yeah, with Cosgrave, no one freaks out over a little technicality if it's something verified. It's because they hate with a desperate passion. They hate any kind of populist energy whatsoever. This kind of outside the box a little bit. This kind of non-standard media energy. And especially when it comes from big voices, they get poisonous about it. So it's interesting to see how that'll come for Conor McGregor, because he's a much bigger figure. I see to my mind, he is bigger than RTE and the Irish Times and all of this stuff combined. The Irish media establishment set, that includes the media, NGOs, the whole lot, right? I think his voice, his platform is much bigger than them. He is bigger than them. So that is another reason. Tara says she's off to grab a cup of tea. If any of you are watching this without a cup of tea, to be honest, I'm starting to wonder. And to Walsh's point there, that it's disingenuous. I agree. It does have that kind of energy of kind of the carnival barking populist kind of stuff. So it could be seen that way. I could agree that someone could see it that way. That's as far as I'll go, right? Same way someone could say that about Trump. Trump was, and I'm not a fan of Trump anymore, but his populist energy in 2016, outwardly, yes, it seems a bit cheap and a bit whatever. But underneath it all, he's representing something that is, to my mind, noble, true, necessary, and important. So, that's why I see, even though he's a bit whatever, I kind of take it on board. Also, I feel like I've made this point in a different video. I think him and John Kavanagh and all of these guys are effectively kind of nationalists, populists, whatever you want to call it. Like I said before, John Kavanagh appeared on Gavin McInnes, very unpolitically correct. You know what I mean? You have to know Gavin McInnes, right? A lot of people call him alt-light or whatever, but he's certainly alt something. He was on with Gavin McInnes. He wasn't on, he was on with him because he obviously is a fan or knows him or whatever. so because ever since I noticed that, and I noticed Conor McGregor's kind of energy over the years, some points he would make, so he kind of touch on third rails here and there. I felt like, you know what, these guys at their heart are kind of interested in some of this stuff. So I felt like that anyway. So when I see Conor McGregor come out with these points, I don't see it as someone who was just completely blank slate, who knows what they believed, and suddenly they're just turning on this kind of like huckster, oh, I'm now into the populist thing. Oh, I'm going to talk about immigration. I would feel like that if I hadn't for years been kind of observing them from a distance, being like, and because I have been felt that way for a while, this is less of a surprise to me. Therefore, it feels less scammy. But that's just me. So that was McGregor, and interestingly, what are they called? Dublin Airport, who seem to be very very kind of like, they're very like, they love to reply to the bad people and kind of get retweets from like, oh, slay Queen, slay Dublin Airport, slay the bad people, the people who say unpolitically correct things or whatever. Dublin Airport almost has a personality as one of these accounts now, like this kind of liberal firebrand account type of thing. When I thought it was just the airport, but anyway, they love to get in passive aggressively. We're just clearing up, whatever. So, and it's weird for me to declare. It sounds paranoid that I'm saying, "Oh, Dublin Airport is they're such liberals." I'm just making an observation on the way that account is run. I know an airport is an inanimate thing, but the way their social media strategy or whatever, ultimately they are just another institution. So they kind of go through it here. Hi, Conor. We've been asked about our status many times over the past few weeks, both by the media and public via social media. Irish government policy is that we're open as an essential service for the import-export of cargo. I'm just going to put it there. Yeah, just having a little burp there. Sorry. But so I'm going to put it in the chat just so you don't accuse me of like glossing over stuff. You can read that yourself. But I'm not going to read all this. I'll basically give you the gist. They're trying to say that it's essential stuff. It's kind of like, or it's not that they're saying it's essential stuff. They're saying that there's hardly anyone coming through the airport, much less than usual. And the airport is necessary for cargo, for, as what's his name? Houlihan said a few weeks ago. He said, oh, well, we might need someone to come in and fix an MRI machine or some essential personnel, which we don't have in the state. So like, that's an example. And so Dublin Airport are kind of reiterating that general point. We would need, we might need this person, that person, who could say that those people shouldn't come in. We would all be forced to agree, well, yes, those people should come in. And of course, cargo has to come in, right? Again, it's a bit of a straw man. It's like, yeah, nobody's quite saying that. Nobody's asking for that to be stopped, really. You're giving these kind of straw man examples that everybody kind of agrees with as is. What we're talking about is the fact that there is none that we've been told about at the very least. There is no ban on travel into Ireland. Anecdote suggests that there has been no active statement to the contrary, despite noise being made about it. So we are led to at least assume that while there may be much less traffic, the idea of someone just kind of swanning in here, that's such a rare thing. That doesn't happen so much. Don't worry, it's not flooding in. It's like, okay, but that might be the case. But what we're asking about is, can people come in like that? Can they? Because although it might be a small amount, they still can. And the contradiction here is that, if I decide that I want to drive, if I want to, let's say, go to, everybody's got tea now, it's brilliant. I'm just reading the chat here. If I want to go to Sligo in the morning, drive across the country to Sligo, or I want to go to Waterford or Wexford or wherever, right? And I set up a call with some landlord, and I say, I'm going to rent your house and I'm just going to hang out there. If you get on the road, at least according to the Gardaí, you're not allowed to do that. They have checkpoints, and you have to basically have a letter or a reason or an essential thing, a reason to go. They've made that very clear all over the airwaves and everything, right? Gardaí everywhere. I was in a park. I've told the story before, but I was a bit too sore and kind of tired and stuff to exercise. a particular day, so I just wanted to sit on a bench and kind of just sit there and think. And a guard came up and harassed me. I was on the way to the butcher's, and the guard was like, "Where'd you come from? Where'd you go?" Cotton Eye Joe to me, given me the whole spiel. And again, like I say, if I were to drive across country, I wouldn't be allowed. I could say, "Hey, I've rented a thing. I'm just going to go there and be by myself." It's perfectly safe. If you just hear my story, Garda, it's safe. You know what I mean? I know there's a rule, but for me, I'm being responsible though, despite the rule. They would go, no, rules are rules. This is law now, and they're talking about arresting people and fines. It's not a suggestion. It's not a guideline. It's a law. And that brings us back to the airport. It doesn't matter if it's not that many people or whatever. The question is just, why is it technically, or they might say, someone suggested earlier to me that, well, people at the airport could just spoof it. They could, maybe successfully. But at the same time, I could spoof the guards on the road to Sligo and maybe get away with it. But that doesn't change the fact that it is written down in law and put into practice by the Gardaí in general that is not allowed. It's stopped, over, finished. You're not allowed to go more than 2 kilometers. That's not just like, well, whatever. And again, they could leave you off if they caught you 5 kilometers away from your house. But on paper, and probably largely in practice too, they will haul you up on that and say, no, you can't. And if they don't give you a fine or jail you, they'll go back within your 2 kilometers now. We caught you, back you go. So it should be the same in the airport, provided they don't get successfully spoofed. Every law can be flouted with a bit of ingenuity, but that doesn't mean the law shouldn't exist. So what we're asking here is of the airport, of the government, of everything, can we just get a clear answer from you? Instead of talking about the guy who's going to come in and fix the MRI machine or the people who are delivering essential goods, that's not what we're asking you. We're asking you, are people coming in here, for example, British holidaymakers? Britain had 1,000 deaths today. They're really bad at the moment. So you're going to have a lot of Brits trying to abscond to their holiday home in Ireland, of course, or take their camper van and be like, let's just go around the island. And that's the way it is. That's going to happen. If you leave it open and you just say, hey, there's going to be very few people coming in. We need those channels of transport for certain essential things, it's like, yeah, but why not just say, okay, that's fine, let those things happen. But people can't just come in here. As in, like, if you come up and you don't have some explicit letter to say, I'm fixing the MRI machine, I'm delivering cargo, then you're not allowed. Same way, you're allowed to break the transport rules within Ireland domestically. If you have a reason, you can do that. But if you can't, you can't. And that is black and white, simple as. So they're kind of skirting around it. And that's the ultimate point of this question, is to say, how far are you willing to go with your belief in this international transport, this freedom of movement? It would be a landmark thing for them to just shut it down. And they should. And they are right. It's probably not a massive overall number of people coming into the country with no essential reason. But there is a number. And if the law is set in stone for us in Ireland domestically, we can't go within 2 meters of each other, everything else, getting harassed by guards all over the place, then why is it just kind of laissez-faire, hey, it doesn't matter too much anyway, some of it's essential? Why don't they just introduce, they're able to separate essential from non-essential domestically. Why can't they do that internationally? Why do they just throw their hands up and say, hey, it's all mixed in, we can do nothing? It's like, no, we want, the point of this for me is like, I want to see you ban international travel. And I know you wouldn't have to do that in normal times just because I want to. But at the moment, most people are in complete agreement. So therefore, the spotlight is on you now to see, not will you close the borders in general times, but can you when it is necessary? Is there some kind of, I don't know, deep set ideology, deep set international kind of thing going on? And the other thing is, other countries have done it. Other European countries have shut their borders and have done it a long time ago. But Ireland is this great little place to do business, a multinational global country. We're so up our arses on that, or at least our leadership and elites are. It's just, you're basically just watching them and being like, go on, just you can do it. You can do it. Just say you can shut the borders. And they're so, I think, wrapped up in the pretext of what Ireland actually is, which is this global open, blah, blah, blah thing, that even in the midst of a pandemic, when we can't go from more than 2 kilometers from our houses, they are unable to come out and just state, yeah, we're closing it. Now it has to stay open for cargo, it has to stay open for essential services and MRI mechanics and whatever. But anyone else, it's not a matter of vagueness. It's just a matter of, no, we check them. And if they don't have full credentials to state what they're doing, and that reason is legitimate, then they're not coming in. They get turned around, go back, sorry. If that's the case, just tell us that's the case. And if it's not, then why isn't it the case? That's all. So it's not the end of that, actually. Dublin Airport. So McGregor actually replied. He basically replied kind of what I said myself, to be honest. He basically did. Yeah, he said he basically went off on the same thing as like the domestic versus the international, the contradiction, all of that. He made that point. So it'll be interesting to see how the media and NGOs and all of this grapple with it. They're clinging to this technicality, this straw man of essential services and everything else, instead of just answering the question. And what the aim for me now is to just answer the question specifically, because it's very easy. Am I allowed to go more than 2 kilometers from my house? With regard to the fact that if it's an essential service, I can, but assume I don't, can I? They will very easily say, no, you can't. That's just the rule. We want that for the airports too. If that's the case, just say that's the case. And if it's not, why the fuck is it not? So that's that. Someone here said, Ginger Ninja, when I was just... I said this to Conor McGregor in his replies. I said, if we can't visit our families or go within 2 meters of each other or read a book in a park, why the fuck are people allowed to fly in here from Milan? Albeit maybe in small numbers, it's not really a big deal. But as far as we're led to believe, they can, and probably in some numbers do. And I just said, open borders is a dangerous cult mentality among our elites. So anyway, this guy replies to me and he says, Happy Easter, King Brian Brew, who says Happy Easter to me, thanks. This guy, Ginger Ninja, said to me, reminds me of the James Connolly quote about how a free country must have the ability to open and close its harbours, which, I'm not very well read on James Connolly, but I had tried to have a quick look for it. I couldn't find it on a Google search. So if Ginger Ninja is watching, or if anybody else knows what James Connolly's quote on opening and closing harbours being essential to a free country, which, intuitively it is, isn't it? I'd love to know what that quote is. Anyway, you can let it maybe in the replies when the video is posted or whatever, if anybody knows. So what am I on to now? So I'm going to do a quick, there's Anne-Marie Waters. Chat is, we have a big chat here. A lot of people saying stuff. It's hard to pick out one thing. Jamie Marigini says, Garrod, what do you think of the theory going around regards you don't catch a virus? I have no idea. My short answer to that is I really don't know. I see people saying you can't get a virus and stuff. I don't know. I'll look into it. But Anne-Marie Waters, interestingly, she had a website in the past. I don't know if she still has it. I think it was just annemariewaters.com. And I wrote a piece for her years ago about, I can't quite remember what it's about, but she graciously accepted it. So I'm not, I'm generally kind of loyal to people if they're nice to me. I don't like to turn on them for ideological reasons and be besmirching of their personality. So I'm not going to do that. The article was about imams and political correctness and Islam and stuff like that. I was actually quite good too. I write a good article, but it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of effort to perfect an article. First, it's like you have to get started and get going. And then once you do, if you're a bit of a perfectionist, it just takes a lot. Videos are so much easier, and you usually end up expressing your thoughts anyway, just as well. Maybe not as perfectly, but you get the point. So Anne-Marie Waters did this video on Patriotic Alternative, which is, like I said earlier, an activist kind of a nationalist group in UK, Mark Collett, Laura Towler, various people like that. It's a very interesting scene they have. And I like what they're doing. I like their kind of strategy of just pushing the message without sugarcoating it too much or any of that. Or, there's a word for this, but without climbing down on their beliefs, right? But also not just being total spurgs or weirdos. The big thing is not being weirdos, being ordinary, decent, upstanding, quality people. And just, I don't know, I'm sure they could describe it better than I am, but that's my impression of it. And so what's happening in England, basically, between this nationalist scene is that Patriotic Alternative is kind of coming up. And then on the other side, you have the Tommy Robinsons and a bit of Anne-Marie Waters and some people like that. And the the dividing lines are on kind of some of the tougher questions of like demographics, demographic replacement. Saying those words might get me banned from YouTube now, with the algorithm. But I'm just gonna. I can still see. Never mind. Sorry, YouTube screen is just tricking me. So there's the dividing lines are some of those difficult questions like demographics, and although they're not that far apart on it, there is some fundamental lines which the Tommy Robinsons, the Anne Marie Waters, the Britain First kind of feel unwilling to cross. There also is the issue of Zionism. Zionism within the nationalist right. So you have Tommy Robinson collected money for a documentary and then called it Shalom and takes trips to Israel and is this kind of ardent Zionist, basically, kind of counter jihad. Islam is bad, but Zionism and Israel are amazing and all this kind of stuff. And they're always threatened and they're always the victims and blah, blah, blah. And so that's the dividing line. The issue is Zionism, demographics, ethnicity, various things like that. And what do you call it? What's been happening, as far as I can see, is that the patriotic alternative are kind of getting big, and they're getting a name for themselves. They have a big online presence. So what you're having with Tommy Robinson, Anne Marie Waters, and them is they're getting spammed in their chat a lot, and they're getting called Zionist shills and cucks and all this kind of stuff, right? Some of these words are going to draw the ire of YouTube on me as well, I'd say. But they're getting called all of this. And, like it is online, if you're constantly getting harassed or whatever, not harassed, but constantly have people asking you to address these questions, it kind of gets overwhelming after a while. So what Anne Marie Waters did was uploaded a video, basically, and said, kind of like, basically disavowing the whole lot, just being like, listen, I keep getting asked to talk about this, and what I'm going to say now is I want nothing to do with it. They're all bad. They are terrible. They are like Nazis. They are this, that, and the other, right? And I don't want anything to do with that. And it's interesting. She shares what I found interesting about that is and of course the comments are all, lit up against her, right? You have all these people on the patriotic alternative side. They're like, why don't you debate Mark or Laura? She said that Mark Collett is anti-woman when the deputy leader or whatever of patriotic alternative is Laura Towler, i.e. a woman, blah, blah, blah. She's getting roasted in the comments. And, but the thing that I found most interesting of all was that she said, hey, I don't want British people to become a demographic minority either. Like, she has become more to the right, or whatever you want to call it, over the past few years, I've noticed. Because originally she's kind of a liberal progressive and kind of became anti-Islam via liberalism. As in, like, the chief argument she has against Islam, as far as I can see, is like, they're bad to gays, they're bad to women, they're blah, blah, blah. So the issue isn't so much that they are foreign to our culture and a threat to our culture and a threat to us as a group. It's that they're anti-liberal, they're anti-progressive, anti-woke, whatever. They are effectively Islam, from their point of view, is far right, which it is. It's an extremely far right ideology. And I don't even say that necessarily as a criticism or a compliment. I'm just saying it is far rightism made into a religion, basically, in Arabia. That's what it is. And that's her problem with it. So there's this kind of schism and the point of view and all of that. And of course, the Zionism. So the point I wanted to make is that even though she comes at it from a liberal, progressive point of view, anti-Islam point of view, she has moved more towards the kind of a nationalist point of view. She said she doesn't want British people to become a minority in Britain. She's like, I agree, I don't want that. But then she castigates them for their policy. She says they want to round up all these people of color and minorities and chuck them out and stuff. And I watched a Laura Towler video today, just to be clear on that, because she has a whole video on what they would do about deportation and stabilizing the demographic trends in Britain. And it was basically, it's radical for now, but overall it's not that radical, I suppose. It was the idea of deporting all illegals and of offering payment to non-British people, non-ethnically British people, pretty much, if they wanted to go back to their homeland. So if someone is from Pakistan or Africa or whatever, and they ended up here either first or second generation, and they would like to avail of the opportunity to return to their homeland. So, for example, if you had a first or second or whatever generation Irish person in Australia, and Australia said, hey, we're going to give you 10, 20,000 euro, whatever, 10,000 per person, if you want to return to where you're from, if that is of interest to you. And with the idea being that nobody gets forced to do anything. That's kind of at the center of Laura Towler's proposal anyway. You don't force anyone to do anything, but you take those steps. And that would stabilize the bleeding of demographic trends, I suppose, from their perspective. But Anne-Marie Waters characterizing it as wanting to round people up and stuff, which is, I suppose, a straw man from her point of view. But regardless of all that, the straw men and the this and the that, what the actual facts of Patriotic Alternatives policy position is, what I just found interesting is, regardless of what Patriotic Alternatives suggestion is or solution is, solution's another word that could get me in trouble here, but even for a centrist like myself and yourselves, but what's interesting, just aside from that, is that she says, I don't want British people to become a minority in Britain either. And I think we understand she, I think, acknowledges what British people are effectively is the kind of native group of that island, or that part of that island, right? And I just, again, with respect to her, if you're so squeamish about Patriotic Alternatives suggested policy, which is, it's not extreme, really, if you're to take Laura Towler's word for her the policy, and that's all you can do. It's not that extreme, and anything less extreme, and I don't think it's extreme, but anything less direct than that, I think just at a pragmatic level, will not arrest the demographic decline of British people in Britain. It just wouldn't. So the kind of, she's half Irish. Tom Kelly's asking me if she's Irish. She's kind of lives in England, but she's originally Irish. You can hear her accent, but it's just a contradiction. Again, it's not a personal spat or an insult to her or whatever. It's just, or taking sides or any of that. It's just to say, I mean, short of Patriotic Alternatives suggestion on that, then you basically can't halt the demographic spiraling in Britain. That will, come to fruition fully, the whole 50-50 thing, 2050, 2060, whenever, 2040, I don't know. But in a few decades, you're not going to stop that. And again, it just comes back to, if you don't want to stop it, then that's fine. Then you can criticize Patriotic Alternatives policy and say, I don't like that policy because, and ergo, I don't care about doing anything about demographics in Britain. But you can't have it both ways. You just can't say, you just can't. The two don't make sense. If you're not willing to at least acknowledge that you need to go a bit further than this kind of, I don't know, whatever brand she has of like not wanting to deport illegals and remigration and stuff like that. If you don't want to do that, or if you think that is haram, or you can't talk about it and it's terrible and it's wickedness embodied, then kind of, to me, it is just like, then don't say you want to stop British people becoming or English people becoming a minority. You can't say both. You can't ride one and the other at the same time. Unfortunately, that's just a pragmatic, factual point of view I have on that, and I think it's true. So that's Anne-Marie Waters, and I will link these afterwards. I didn't get a chance because I was a little bit preoccupied beforehand, but I will put them once the video is posted afterwards. I'll put these videos in the description, because there's that. I think that for your own viewing, I think to compare Anne-Marie Waters' video here to Laura Towler's video here on it's a general speech, but it's talking about basically deportation, re-emigration, whatever you want to call it. So I think those are the two, kind of the steak and the wine here, just the two accompanying videos, and that we get to see what Anne-Marie says. Sorry, it's just something in the chat there making me laugh, but you get to see what they both say and make your own mind up. So that is basically that, isn't it? So another thing I wanted to point out, it's kind of semi-related, because I'm talking about Patriotic Alternative and that kind of scene. There's an interrelated scene, and it is, I think this is coming from Frody Midyard, who is, I actually don't know the guy, and I don't even know where he's from. And now I don't even know if it's he's behind it, but I think it is. I feel like I just saw that on Twitter earlier. And they do some very productive stuff. Another nationalist kind of grouping or whatever on the same tenor as a patriotic alternative. And it's so the idea is to do a film festival, which I imagine, I didn't look into it. I suppose I could right now, but yeah, I think this is going to be online. If it's not, anyway, look, it'll be linked in the description and you can get the details as you want it. But there's just some very interesting stuff here. Okay, we've got music. So let's just have a watch off this. Hopefully I don't lose you here. Let's see the list. Because I want you all to engage in this. I will be anyway. I'm looking forward to this. So what have we got? Greg Johnson doing 12 Monkeys, basically analyzing, reviewing it. Henrik Palmgren doing whatever that is. Survive the Jive, Seven Seal, Edward Dutton, Keith Woods, our own Keith Woods. You know, some people like him, some people don't. I think he's good. Laura Towler doing Black Mirror, Morgoth doing Chernobyl, looking forward to that. Mark Collett doing Goodfellas. Millennial Woes doing RoboCop. I'm just kind of focusing on the people I kind of know of here a bit more. The Battle of Algiers, someone else is doing. E. Michael Jones is doing 100 Days of Sodom. Jared Taylor, who speaks Japanese, is doing Harakiri. Cool. John Morgan doing Runaway Train. I can't say this one. Philosophicat. She's a lady who was on Millennial Woes this year. That's all I've seen of her. I think, yeah, and she's going to do the Lord of the Rings, but she was a very eloquent speaker, actually. Very good presentation and everything. So I'd be looking forward to that one. The Dark Knight trilogy. This is like a trailer here I'm doing for everybody. Someone called JK is doing The Thing. I'm a big fan of that. Someone's doing The Matrix. Kevin McDonald is doing Requiem for an American Dream. And Alexander Duggan, that one caught me off guard. Alexander Duggan, because he's like a big international kind of geopolitical figure almost, is doing Twin Peaks, which I've never seen. So maybe I'll watch that before watching his review. That's just something to look forward to. So yeah, that is basically that. And then moving on to Chinese people being racist to black people. I don't know quite why I'm showing you this. I think it does lead somewhere. I think I will have thoughts on this. So it's just kind of showing you this. Just random videos of like black people in China being treated in a derogatory fashion or whatever. So what's this about? Look how Africans and other foreigners are stranded on the street, evacuated from the street, denied their right to rent a place. So basically China is saying, fuck humanity and racism rules. African virus, they say. Foreign virus, they say. Racist twats. Y'all beating scorpions. So like, yeah, they're having their passports taken, it seems, and like being basically told you can't rent, you can't stay anywhere. It's basically get the fuck out. Is the kind of ethos behind this, I'm assuming, which is very funny. Like, you know, because like Chinese people are extremely generally racist, as in like ethnocentric to a extremely high pitch, and it's just an awkward combination to me. I've always felt so. As in, I wouldn't like to be a black person in China, put it that way. I'd much rather be a black person in Africa, or pretty much anywhere else. So we're coming out of this mess here in China. Okay, so we have more of the same, basically, right? It's just very awkward because the Chinese people don't give a shit. The authorities, the people, there's, you know, you're in a position where you're getting dealt with. Like, there's no like reporting to iReport for hate speech or any of this stuff. And this actually is like, you know, real, but it's like no one cares, you know, within China, and China being such a big power doesn't care what anyone else has to say either. So there's no one you can go cry to, which from my perspective, like provided I didn't have too much capital or investment in China, which hopefully they don't, I would just leave. I would not want to be there. you know? Oh my God. So yeah, they're getting screwed around a bit, you know. Same here, the Nigerian like ambassadors like giving out to these Chinese officials who are just like, uh-huh, uh-huh. That came for business. And just this kind of, it's the reason I say it's awkward is because you have like Chinese or sorry, African people being like have their passports taken and like no you can't rent, and then they're just stranded kind of on the street, and then they're just walking around being aghast at it, and these Chinese officials are just kind of following them being like yep. Nobody on the street cares or anything, you know, so that's why it's awkward. They're pursuing us. So so that's basically that, and it leads me to I'm gonna like I'll finish up in a sec, but so I'll just go to full screen because there's nothing else screen related for me to talk about. It just brings me on to this AVDChina thing and Lawai and Serpent ZA, and I always find it I'm always like really interested. Ah, someone just texted me to say the videos don't have audio. I'm sure I put audio on for these. Ah, okay. So I've been just talking for the last one. Well, you kind of get the. Sorry, I didn't see the chat. You get the gist. You didn't miss out on anything. I was kind of doing their accents and stuff, which must have sounded funny, but you didn't miss anything. I could go back and try to fix it. Whatever. You could kind of see what was going on. Chinese people being chastised and hunted out, or African people by Chinese authorities. So anyway, yeah, the AVDChina, Serpent ZA, and Lawai, extremely good channel. They lived in China for years. They have Chinese wives. They speak Chinese, and they used to do lots of kind of subversive kind of videos and stuff like that from within China, and some just generally innocent videos, just discussing the culture and stuff like that. And it's a really good channel, and they still have a great channel. Although they now are outside China, they were basically kind of hunted out of China as kind of subversive or whatever, I suppose. And now they just do a lot of content about China, especially now with the pandemic going on. But I'm always interested by their take, because it seems like China, from my point of view, China kind of red pilled them a bit on the state of the world, which I think a lot of people who maybe share some of the points of view I have, you know, when you go around the world a little bit, to some extent, to somewhere different outside of the first world, outside of the West, you spend some time there and you get the cold, hard face of reality. It kind of red pills you a little bit on the world, and you come back to where you're from and you kind of appreciate where you're from, and you get outside of, you basically exit the liberal Western mentality. They kind of, in a strange way, it's kind of, what would you call it? It's what's the word? It's like ethnocentric ethnomasochism, to kind of coin a phrase. Ethnocentric ethnomasochism. That's the only way I can put it. I can't put it any better than that, because I'm getting like ones and twos here, lads. Oh, does anybody here know anyone? Okay, fair enough. That's a chat thing. That's about the virus. But ethnocentric ethnomasochism, whereby only people in the West have such a self-deprecating kind of point of view about themselves and about history and about the way the world is. And no one else in the world has that about themselves or even about Westerners. It's only, I would say, and I know this sounds like I'm trying to be funny here, but it's a kind of a, in a way, I see it as a kind of an ethnic supremacist worldview. Because if you didn't see yourself as above and apart from the rest of the world, the other civilizations, cultures, races, whatever, you wouldn't be so universalist. You wouldn't have this masochistic point of view, self-destructive, and kind of paternalistic view of the entire world, and yourself as some kind of god over the whole world, which is ultimately a dangerous point of view, because ultimately the bitter truth about it is that you're not. There are big powers in the world, and there are cynics in the world, people who want to take advantage of where you're from. and all of these various things. And that's the kind of red pill you get when you go away. So I think they did, these guys I'm talking about, got a bit red pilled and all of that. But at the same time, I think they might have gotten a bit of a kind of bitterness towards China. And I can see that happening. And you see it a lot, let's say, in Africa too. I used to always see over there, you'd have the biggest liberals in the whole world would be dealing with, and anybody who's been over there will know what I'm talking about, just the way it is, right? And you will have the most progressive, I knew some of the most progressive, like white people in the whole world who were over there. And like a couple of weeks in, all they do when they meet up at the cocktail bars and stuff, even though they're the biggest liberals, they would be like, this guy today was just like this, and I was in this traffic and they were just being like this. And they like sound so vengeful and hateful. They're like, these people and all of this stuff, right? More so than I ever was. But yet they wouldn't give up the pretense that they're liberal. Oh, I'm just telling a story from today about a person. And they start to go, just what's wrong with this place and all of this stuff. They all get into it. And you do start to see a little bit of a hatred come out after a while. And I'm not saying I'm not castigating it or justifying it or anything. I'm just saying it is the way it is among these liberal whites in places like Africa. And I'm sure it's the same in China too. You just go, why don't they just, and some of it's legitimate. Why do they eat things like this? Why are they cruel to each other in this certain way, or to animals, or to this and to that? And it's just a culture clash where this kind of, I don't know, what is it? Ethnocentric resentment of your own, you as a Westerner with your own worldview, clash against it. And that's why I think ultimately to be a bit of a realist about this stuff, as I am, and I think most of you are, is actually less ignorant. It's less kind of universalist and ultimately supremacist to just be like, they are just different. And maybe I don't belong here. And maybe I'm not trying to spread the word. It's almost like these AVD guys are kind of trying to evangelize. And I agree with them on a lot of it, but I just feel like they don't recognize that they are trying to evangelize to China. And because China are rejecting them and have rejected them hard, both as a state and also probably as a people, which is the thing I don't think they recognize or acknowledge. They think it's all state manipulation, but actually, if they were being honest, I think they would acknowledge a portion of it comes from just Chinese people have a different culture, ultimately, and maybe they do resent being lectured to. And I'm not taking the side of China or Chinese people against these guys. I like the AVD guys, but they have this kind of resentment and this complex going on, and this kind of evangelism, and the fact that they're white evangelism, coming to save China. I'm talking again, a long named account here just asked me what I'm talking about. I'm talking about AVDChina. If you don't know who they are, you'll find out. Anyway, talking about China, they have this. Yeah, I think they feel hurt and vengeful that in a way their white evangelism. I'm going to come and help you from your authoritarian government and all of this stuff, which they think is totally unwanted in China. Maybe it's like, the authoritarian government was forced onto them and they were manipulated. As opposed to maybe it is a kind of rising organically from China, the whole Confucian thing, they have a conformist culture and all of that. They maybe are reluctant to acknowledge that some of it is just it's just the way it is. And Chinese people basically, and I'm not speaking for all Chinese people, blah, blah, but Chinese people maybe don't want your liberalism. They don't want to be liberated by you, the white savior, basically. And I do think those guys are woke, and I think those guys would understand the points I'm making here and appreciate it to some extent. But I also think they would be too stubborn to acknowledge it. And it's interesting. And then on another scale, they're completely right. But they're just caught in this thing of like, we just care about China and all this, when they should just admit, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's like, and at the same time, then they won't admit, like, they surely see everything that's going on with how much they resent China, and they do understand China, clearly. You would think they would go, we need to shut down our borders. We need to not. These guys are taking the piss out of us, basically. These guys are like onto us big time, and they have our number. Because they talk about how the Chinese state is manipulating Western fear of being called racist and stuff like that. Surely they should know what's going on and just be like, the West needs to get real here, and just face up to these Chinese and like shut them out. I think we should be doing that left, right, and center if anybody was awake. But anyway, so I love what the AVD guys are doing, but I do sometimes see them kind of whinging about China not being liberal and not being this and that, and just ascribing it to the authoritarian regime when, yes, that explains some of it, but it doesn't explain all of it. I'm sure not every Chinese person who hammers them in comment sections on whatever it's called, Weibo or whatever, isn't just a function of them being manipulated from the top down. Equally speaking, the Hong Kong regime are manipulated from the top down, or the Hong Kong people, by American liberalism, clearly Western liberalism. I'm kind of going off on spirals here, but my point is just the fact that these AVD guys are caught up on this liberal crusade in their mind, but they're also awake to how it's fake, and they're kind of red-pilled as well. And the two are kind of in conflict and kind of rubbing off of each other, and they don't quite add up. And there's this contradiction, internal contradiction and frustration in their worldview on all this stuff when they're giving out about things. So that's my point of view on them and on the Chinese. Oh, and also on the Chinese racism thing here. It's this is the obvious point, is that like this is going on right now. You have the same in Israel, like deporting black people who are like have been in Israel for a long time, like forcibly, not like Laura Towler deporting, but forcibly deporting people back to random parts of Africa and all of this stuff. And Israeli public opinion is like full on, like largely against Africans being in the country at all. You have to go to Africa itself. If you have like a Mozambican or whatever they call themselves, or a Zambian or a Zimbabwean or Kenyan or whatever, immigrates to South Africa or a lot of parts of Africa, they'll end up getting necklaced. They'll get a neck as immigrants, so natives to South Africa will often stone them to death while putting a tire around their neck and burning them alive. And it's just, this so-called racism thing goes on all over the world. It legitimately goes on. And again, I'm not saying, well, obviously I condemn necklacing, right? But a few steps down from that, I don't castigate people being ethnocentric or whatever, but it's just that exception for the West. And again, I do think it comes back to the West having this ultimately, and it sounds like I'm just trying to be like, what's the word? Have like the hottest take. I'm not just trying to have the hottest take for no reason or something, but it is, and I'm not the first person who said this, but it is, there's a kind of an ethnocentric, ethnomasochist thing in the West and I think it comes out of a kind of a supremacy, a kind of a elven class, this kind of a upper class who are separate and apart from the rest of the world and a higher species. And it's the ultimate delusion and a path to destruction. And I see that happening. I see that happening in the ultimate place to watch that phenomenon in play is AVDChina, those two guys, where they are not fully in the ethnocentric, ethnomasochist / supremacist camp, like deluded liberal camp. They're not fully in that, but they're not fully woke up either. And they have a grudge against China, obviously. And it's kind of their job. So they're caught between these two things and they can't just come on out. It's just an interesting, I find them interesting every video, because when I'm watching the video about, Chinese people are like scamming masks from the West and stuff, I'm watching it, I'm very interested by the topic they're discussing. But then another part of my mind is just observing where their mentality and their frustrations are at and what's going on in their heads. And that kind of doubles up on how interesting their videos can be. So yeah, I'm basically going to leave it there. Let's have a quick check on the chat. Someone said he's a while ago. I kept catching my eye because I always and speaking of being paranoid, I will see, you'll see like he's a wanker in the chat and your eye does draw over to it and you're like, you talking about me? Someone was saying he's paranoid or something, which fits me now looking at the chat being paranoid. Last True Gale says the West has low ethnocentrism in general. Yeah, I'm just being a bit nuanced there by saying, I know the West is deeply lacking in any kind of ethnocentrism, but just on a different kind of level, I feel like this kind of universalism can only be informed by a kind of strange, latent ethnocentrism. And even beyond that, a kind of an elevated status as basically the white savior, the whatever it is, So I'm just checking the chat to see if you're all good. Yeah, I should still be talking, shouldn't I? They say dead air is bad. China have 2.2 million active military, not 200 million. Okay, that's obviously answering somebody else. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, we should talk more about China, by the way. It is a rising power, is putting it lightly. Massive. That power has risen. And there's a lot to talk about with that. I just wish I'm going to go back. I'm going to talk more. I just wish the AVD guys, instead of whining and whinging that China is not liberal like us, oh my God, they're not listening to us and all of that. Why don't you just accept that they're the way they are and we need to compete with them? We need to shut them out and shut them down. This isn't like an anti-Chinese person screed on my behalf. It's just a geopolitical overall thing. Instead, just realize, maybe focus on your own civilization, instead of trying to get them to bring themselves to our level. They're not gonna. Chopper says Tony Houlihan. It looks like Houlihan, his name, but it's Houlihan apparently. Tony Houlihan was caught out today. Chopper, do you want to tell me what that was about? And I know there's a delay here, so it might take a sec, but if you can kind of give me a nutshell version of that, because I'd love to know. And seeming as I've said it now, we might as well find out. So I have a good few links to put in the description. I'll put the Patriotic Alternative, the Anne-Marie Waters, the Conor McGregor tweets you can kind of find. Just go to his Twitter, you'll find them. So I'll put the Patriotic Alternative, the Anne-Marie Waters thing, and then I will put up a few select videos of AVDChina, just random ones that kind of touch on this whole topic of these topics I was trying to outline. So Chopper says 2 figures put out for total cases. Media picked up on it. And no rush. So what else am I going to put up here? I think that's all the links I have for you, really. Yeah. How we can find out from Chopper, unless you can get it in before I finish here. We'll find out from you on Twitter. The delay is a tragedy here because you probably have it up already, and I'm just waiting for it on my end. Oh, Chopper has a video. Can I see that? Oh, cool. I just put that up on screen. I didn't know I could do that. Mad. Okay, I'll go over to YouTube now and grab it. Good. This is cool. I'm always blown away by how I have the video here. I'm always blown away by how interactive this medium is. It might be small scale and it's only me and it's only us or whatever, but compared to the telly, the fact that you can bring something up to me like that, I can go, what is it? You're trying to describe it to me. Then you could give me the video. I can drag the video from one screen to the other, and then we can watch it together. I mean, I don't mean to blow on about it, but it feels, when you're sitting here, it feels very interactive and like mad. More pieces saying I'm cute. I hope you're female. But yeah. But if you're not, that's okay too. Whatever. I'll take the compliment maybe. But yeah, it's very interactive. It's kind of like, I always feel that way about cars as well. This is where I start losing viewers and everybody goes, what's he talking about? Cars are when you're sitting in a car, you can drive it. You can look in the mirror and see all angles. You can turn on heat, radio, indicators, backwashers, all that kind of stuff. You're sitting in a car, you're like, whoa, I can do a lot here in this seat. And it feels like that when you're streaming as well, like this, in this format, because you're like, cool. Now let's watch the video and I'll shut up. Shit. For all I'm saying about the interactivity, you can't actually hear the audio, can you? So I'm going to try to fix that. Okay, if you can't hear it now, then I eat my words about being in control of the interactivity.
We have 2 numbers tonight. No, we have a number in your press release which says 7071 or something. We have 2 numbers tonight. No, we have a number in your press release which says 7071 or something, and we have 8089. So which one are we to report?
So I would well, I'm not going to tell you what to report, but what I would suggest, George, 8089 is the total, and 7071 is the number as of midnight the preceding night, which we give you a more detailed report on, because it takes time to do that more detailed report. We've always reported that the more detailed breakdown is as of midnight the night before last. I've always said that. I'm sure you've heard me saying that each evening. So that figure is a more detailed breakdown and always runs the total number of cases. So 8089 is the total up to as close as the 7071 is as of midnight on Wednesday night.
But how long will it go on?
Fucking
That's
spoofer.
two numbers. I know Irish people are very good at ambiguity, and I'm pretty good at it.
Tell the
I
truth,
can't
Tony.
handle This one.
This isn't ambiguity, George.
But this in terms of, when you've got two numbers,
So I don't know. People were saying they couldn't hear it. I actually had it turned up to full here. Maybe there's some kind of trick I could pull if I went deep into my audio settings. But as far as the two audio settings, you can see there, they're kind of up to the top. He was basically all over the place on open sound setting. Yeah, I'll do that next time. I'm hardly going to do it now. But could you not hear it at all? I mean, if you really want to hear it, I suppose I can try sound. I feel like this is what would I say? A fool's errand. This is a fool's errand. I think doing tech support here is probably going to go very disastrously badly. There is sound there, master volume, test your mic, I'll do it next time. Chopper had the link in the chat there, and I can give it to you here as well. You can watch it afterwards. Basically, he was all over the place with the number. He couldn't, he was like, it was this and that. But actually, I can speak to it in general. I can speak to that point in general. So let me get back here. Their testing is like 72 hours delayed. So you get like, you have the link there. Sorry, the sound wasn't high up enough. I'll try to work on that next time. But the results we get are like 72 hours old anyway. So when you take the numbers of people who died and got diagnosed today, it's really from like Wednesday or something like that. And also, a lot of people are waiting on tests where they say, you hear people say, I got a test and I was waiting 2 weeks for my result or whatever. And batches have to go to Germany and they don't have reagent. So when you actually think about it, it's more like the results are like 2 or 3 days old. And those results themselves are like 2-week-old tests anyway. A week old, 2 weeks old, whatever. So the numbers you're getting might as well be pulled out of your hole, really. They're just weeks old. So it doesn't give you an accurate reflection of what's actually going on now. You would need to find some novel way to do that, which I know some people are working on right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing. So someone else, I was asking me earlier to do ASMR. I might get a packet of crisps and eat crisps for you some night. Blow up the channel, get big, try something different. Chopper says he was excluding the German positives because they were 3 weeks old. Yeah. He did seem to be I didn't quite fully understand the ins and outs of it. You can go to Chopper's Twitter, which is, I'm not signed in. Chopper, you can link to your Twitter in the chat. Jesus Christ, I'm all over the place with the laptop here. Anyway, yeah, you can link to your Twitter there, Chopper. I think everybody should go have a look. You'll have that up. Chopper exclusive. So yeah, ASMR with crisps. Personal PC loves crinkly sounds, so that's good to hear. Yeah, those figures are all over the place. We'll see what happens with that. Yeah, I don't know if the audio thing was on my end. I mean, I can try to figure it out, but it's like, what more can I do? You can hear the audio usually you can hear it okay. So it's just that video and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It's 12:10. Wow. Thanks for sticking with me and watching. You can see Chopper has just linked to his Twitter. Have a look and follow. Very based Twitter account, very based Irish Twitter account, in my humble opinion. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there, and I will provisionally see you on Monday, unless I get a hankering to do something tomorrow or Sunday. There's nothing quite stopping me, but I'll provisionally be Monday and maybe something over the weekend. Who knows? If something interesting happens or if I have something to say, I'll come on. So yeah, have a good weekend.